If you've been grinding Arc Raiders lately, you've probably felt it too. Yeah, the loop is great. We go topside, we bully some bots, we drag scrap back to Speranza, and pray we don't get third-partied on the way to the tubes. But under that slick, retro sci-fi, Embark is clearly building towards something much nastier. The Northline update and the new Stella Montis map didn't just drop more content, they quietly escalated the threat level. You've got the Matriarch, a command unit that makes the Queen feel like a warm-up, and the Shredder, a close-quarters monster for all those tight interior fights. Those aren't random additions. They're warnings. In this video, we're going to look at what the lore is actually pointing towards and break down the 3 likely next chapters for Arc Raiders. The Breach of Toledo, where the war stops being topside only and comes crashing into the underground. Breaking the silence, a desperate attempt to contact the Exodius, and the answer we really don't want to hear. And the Biomass Revelation, the truth about why Couriers drag bodies away, and what that says about Lance and us. For each theory, we'll talk about how the lore supports it, what kind of new Arc machines could show up, and how they change the way that you play. Alright Raiders, stash your loot, check your surge shields, and let's start with the nightmare that hits closest to home. Right now, the game treats Speranza and the underground like sacred ground. This is the safe space. According to the lore, Speranza is one of the last relatively secure havens in the Rust Belt, connected to the surface by tubes, a web of old transit tunnels, and slingshot stations that fire raiders up to different maps. We talk like Arc owns the surface, but the machines are already probing below. Arc probes are canonically designed to scan the ground and locate big underground voids, exactly the sort of cavity Speranza sits inside. Celeste literally gives us a quest called A Bad Feeling that makes you go find a probe or a courier, and the flavor text makes it pretty clear. When probes find something, bad things happen. Combine that with the lore for the tubes, a vulnerable, sprawling network that stretches far beyond Speranza, and the way new updates keep adding underground spaces and a hidden bunker beneath Spaceport that already feels like a testbed for interior combat, and you can see where this is going. The first big expansion pivot I expect is this. The Arc finally triangulates a Contrada near Speranza, breaches it, and the war comes into the tubes. Now, not straight into the main hub, that would nuke the social space, but into a neighboring Contrada plugged into the same tube network. Think a new underground map that's still technically home turf, abandoned platforms, sealed stations, and emergency bunkers that have failed. Narratively, this does a few things. It proves that Speranza's secrecy was always temporary. It justifies Shawnee's paranoia and obsession with tube security within the lore, and it confirms the hive mind angle. The Arc aren't just vacuuming up resources, they're conducting a methodical siege to flush humanity out of the ground. If Arc wants to attack bunkers, they need a machine built for it. We already have heavy artillery like the Bombardier and Rocketeer, frontline gun platforms such as the Bastion, and terrifying shock troops like the Leaper and Queen. What we don't have is something that can weaponize the environment itself. Enter in the Sapper. Picture a huge industrial drilling rig fused with a millipede. Plates of armors along the top, segmented legs, and a cone drilling head glowing with thermal cutters. It doesn't patrol in plain sight, it burrows, chewing straight through concrete, rock, and the old subway walls. On your HUD, you might only get seismic pings, similar to how we already track snitches and surveyors by sound and light. Imagine this, you're mid-fight in some half-lit tube junction, using cover, playing sensibly, and then the floor in the center of the room just erupts. The Sapper bursts through, collapses a space, and opens a new tunnel shaft. That fresh tunnel becomes a spawn mouth. Ticks, pops, and maybe new burrowing variants start pouring out until you either blow the Sapper's face open or fall back and seal the breach with explosives. This flips the core comfort in Arc Raiders. Right now, we exploit the verticality. We take rooftops, clamber up towers, kite bastions around cover. With Sappers, nowhere is truly safe. Defending extraction in tight tube corridors becomes about controlling ground integrity, not just line of sight. Raid groups might carry specific anti-breach tools, like extra explosives, fortified bulkheads, and deployable mines like the Deadline to counter Sapper tunnels before they spiral out of control. It also gives Embark an excuse to start rotating tube defense events. Hold the junction for 5 minutes while Sappers try to crack through every wall in sight. The Breach is where the Matriarch starts to make even more sense. She's already introduced as a towering command unit, spawning as a special event on high threat nodes and dropping near a unique reactor. If you accept the hive mind theory, she isn't just a boss. She's the visual tip of a siege intelligence that's actively adapting to our defenses. Sappers, tunneling swarms, maybe even underground variants of bombardiers would fit perfectly into a Matriarch-led assault on the tube network. The second big threat the game keeps poking at is the Exodius. We know from map descriptions like Spaceport that this is where humanity loaded up and fired themselves into orbit, riding shuttles out of the atmosphere while Earth was collapsing. We also have the Exodius modules and other high-end items tied to the Expedition project, hinting that Exodius tech is still critical to long-term survival and retiring a raider. And then there's the quieter environmental stuff. Field Depot lore suggests they were built during the Exodius effort, using pneumatic systems to move cargo to and from the tubes. And the rotating hidden bunker under Spaceport, full of computer terminals and data download points, already act like a primitive comms hub, just pointed at the ground and not the sky. All of that screams, we used to talk to somebody, and then the line went dead. The second story expansion I see is the one the community's been begging for. A questline where we repair long-range transmitters in the mountains to finally hail the Exodius. Mechanically, this could play out as a multi-step quest chain. Step 1. Scavenge rare Exodius grade components like power rods, mechanic accelerators, and special Exodius modules from high threat topside location. Step 2. Venture into a new communications bunker map condition, a more complex, permanent version of the current hidden bunker event, but layered upward into mountaintop relay towers. And then step 3. Defend the bunker while a giant dish uplink charges, and Ark throws everything at you to stop the call. Thematically, this is the moment where the ants in the underground try to talk back to the so-called gods who left. To make a comms-focused expansion hit hard, Embark needs an enemy that attacks more than just your health bar, it attacks your trust. We already have support units like the Snitch and Surveyor that don't do direct damage but weaponize information instead. They scream your position to every Ark within earshot or ping the sky with a beacon. The next logical evolution is a unit that weaponizes your own communications. Meet the Mimic, a sleek, semi-organic drone the size of a human torso. No obvious guns, just a ring of sensors and a mouth of speakers and jammers. Its whole purpose is to listen, record, and replay. The Mimic piggybacks on existing audio cues. You might hear a teammate's familiar voice line, the beeping of a supply call station you activated 2 minutes ago, or the distinctive clunk of a tube extraction pod arriving. You push towards the sound and you walk into an ambush. The Mimic sits in the shadows, using a stun pulse or EMP to knock out your surge shield before the other Ark crash the party. In-game, spotting a Mimic might require visually confirming targets. HUD markers could flicker or lie to you when the Mimic is in play. This turns Ark Raiders into a psychological horror extraction at times. Suddenly, you can't rely on sound the same way. For squads, it pushes tighter call-out discipline. Did you ping that? Did anyone drop a supply? Solo players will feel the paranoia the hardest, and that fits the themes perfectly. From a lore standpoint, the Mimic implies the Ark hive mind isn't just brute forcing us, it's studying our social patterns. If the Matriarch is a siege brain, the Mimic is part of its counterintelligence wing. So what happens when we actually make contact with the Exodius? Thematically, there are two main options and both are bad. The first is the test theory confirmed. The Exodius answers, and they admit what the darker lore hints at. Ark was their tool, a test. Maybe a way to cull the unfit and force the survivors to become hyper-competent raiders before being invited to join them off-world. Or the something worse theory. We get an automated reply, fragmented logs. We realize the Exodius fleet was destroyed by something else, a different machine swarm, alien intelligence, or a catastrophic Ark rebellion. And what we're fighting on Earth is the debris of that war, slowly boomeranging home. Either way, the expansion leaves us with a bitter truth. There is no rescue coming, we are it. And that sets the tone perfectly for the third and darkest theory. Let's talk about the detail everyone keeps glossing over because it's actually kind of horrifying. Couriers drag bodies away. In game terms, Ark Couriers are lootable units, boxy frames you breach for high value material like circuitry, drivers, sentinel cores, and more. But the lore and quest, like a bad feeling, build them up as something more sinister. They're the cleanup crew, the ones that come after a fight and quietly collect things. Now add in the increasingly complex behavior of high-tech Ark like the Queen and Matriarch. These aren't dumb drones, they're tacticians. And the way new lore keeps reminding us, Lance is a synthetic being with missing memories, clearly set up as an anomaly in the system. And suddenly, the idea that Ark might be experimenting with human-machine hybrids stops feeling like edgy fanfiction and starts feeling inevitable. The third expansion I'd bet on is the one that finally answers the what are they doing with the bodies question. I can see us getting a new map or modifier, not a mine and not a bunker, more like a processing facility. Think deeper than Buried City. This is an underground complex where couriers arrive on track lines, dragging captured bodies or crates. Suspended cages and conveyor belts move inventory between stations. You see harvester-like machinery repurposed for organics. Structurally, it could play like a mix between the current hidden bunker event's claustrophobic corridors and a queen or matriarch level boss arena, except the boss is the facility itself. You're not just here for loot, you're here for an answer. And what you find is that Ark isn't simply melting us down for raw materials, it's repurposing our nervous systems. We already have enemies designed to kill you fast. The Bastion's minigun, the Leaper's dive bomb, Rocketeer's missile hell. The processor flips that design philosophically. It doesn't want you dead, it wants you intact. A towering quadruped with a central torso that looks like a mobile detention cell. 2 arms carry shields, 2 are built for grabbing, visible cables running from its core into a semi-translucent module where something is moving. The processor doesn't fire guns, it advances with shield walls, flushing you out with shockwaves and non-lethal stun pulses, kind of like a walking riot shield. If it gets close enough, it can grab you. This doesn't drop you into the normal down state. Instead, your camera is yanked into the cage. You get a tiny window to shoot a weak point. If you fail, you're flagged as captured rather than killed. When a processor appears, the entire fight changes tone. Squad priorities flip from kill the bombardier to save the captive now. Raiders might burn rare consumables or even sacrifice loot to interrupt the capture sequence. In PvP, you'd see squads third-partying just to steal back a captured teammate before the processor disappears into the facility. Lore-wise, processors are the smoking gun. The machines have moved past harvesting alloys and circuits. They've realized that human brains are the rarest resource left, and they're building something that needs them. And this is where Lance comes back in. We already know from official character bios and quests that Lance is an android built with medical expertise far beyond what Speranza should realistically have. And he's missing big chunks of his past. His pre-Speranza identity is intentionally obscure. He's weirdly comfortable both patching humans up and tinkering with Ark parts. Drop a processing facility into that existing lore, and suddenly there's a plausible, very dark twist. Lance isn't a glitch in the system. He's a success, a prototype of the perfected human Ark is trying to mass produce. Maybe he was pulled from a first wave battlefield and rebuilt. Maybe his memories were wiped during a failed interrogation attempt. Maybe whatever lives inside the Matriarch or the Queen reactors used to be people like him. Imagine the emotional gut punch of a late quest reveal where you find Ark schematics that match Lance's frames, archived success and failure logs that refer to human subjects by call sign, or even worse, an audio recording of Lance's own voice, pre-amnesia, helping design the very procedures that now terrify him. That's the kind of twist that doesn't set up more content, it recontextualizes the entire game. So if we zoom out, what does this all look like as a roadmap? First, the Breach of Toledo. Ark pushes underground, we stop thinking of Speranza as untouchable, new siege units like the Sapper make the tubes themselves a battlefield. Then, breaking the silence, we fight our way through bunkers and mountain relays to contact the Exodius. And we learn that either we were always disposable, or there's something out there even worse than the Ark. And then, the Biomass Revelation. We follow the Couriers to their destination, uncovering the processing facility, and realize the machines aren't just exterminating us, they're using us. Mechanically, these expansions would take the strong enemy sandbox the game already has and layer in psychological and existential horror on top of it. It would push Ark Raiders further into that unique PvPvE survival horror extraction niche that no other game is really filling at this scale. And it would give the community something we've all secretly wanted, a story that hits as hard as the gunplay. However, Embark plays it from here. The writing's already on the rusted walls, the probes are listening, the Matriarch is learning, the Couriers are still dragging their secrets back home. So keep your kit ready, keep your eyes on the tunnels, and maybe don't trust every voice you hear on the radio. Enlist, resist, and I'll see you topside, assuming the floor doesn't open first.